Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Unlimited Power TCG YouTube channel, and today's episode is going to be a look into a beginner's guide, the second in the series of beginner's guides that we've done. The first one was in deck building, and this second one is all about improving your game from the basics. This isn't
Before we go any further,
what?
Where was the unlimited power?
I've been ill for a week and a half. I've got a sore throat, and I've been losing my voice for a week.
Hang on. Palpatine wasn't exactly full of throat, was he?
Well, no, but no, I'm not. I will. I've got a tournament in 2 days' time, and
You've got that extra phlegm. You can really lean into it.
No, thank you. I appreciate. Thank you. No, not today.
I'm disappointed. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch the rest. If there's no unlimited power, I don't know what I'm watching.
All right, John, do an unlimited power thing.
Unlimited power.
Here we go. Palpatine with a Scottish accent. I am. I'm much more happy.
Okay. Excellent. All right, good. I'm glad to hear it. What was I saying?
You're going to improve your game.
Yeah. That it was the second of our series, and it's about improving your game.
So this is not a guide on how to win every game you will ever play. It doesn't tell you literally how to do so. This is a set of methodology of things you should practice, things you should need to focus on learning in order to help your game get better. So assuming that you've mastered the basics, you've figured out deck building, which we did a video on, which I just mentioned, you know when to mulligan your first hand if you've got a crap first hand, you know what cards you want to resource and why, you know which sequencing you want to be taking your actions in, whether you're playing a card or attacking or what, anything of this stuff, and you know when to take the initiative as a good move and when to do it as a bad move. Essentially, you know how to play the game for yourself for a reasonable, decent level. This is taking it up to the next stage, really. This is the whole idea behind this video.
Cool.
And the first thing is generally the most important facet of the entire thing. Play some games. Play as many games as you can. The more you play the games, the more it embeds inside your head, the more you get used to the feel, the more you get used to knowing what cards are good for your deck and all this kind of jazz. There's literally no substitute for it. Book learning is all in good. YouTube's all in good. Internet is all in good. But playing games is just... This is what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Yeah, experience.
That's why we do it, unless you just want to collect the cards, and then I don't know why you'd be watching this video.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well made. Once you've done the basics and you've got some games underneath your belt, you want to learn about your enemy, as Sun Tzu said. And the best way there is to do this is find every article, every YouTube video that you can by people whose input you value about a deck tech video that goes through what the deck is, how it plays, so that when you sit down at a table against an opponent at a tournament or something like that, you're not surprised about what cards they're going to be playing against you and what cards they're going to be looking to play on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. There's so many decks that are like meta capable at any given moment, and there's going to be a deck tech video from someone for basically everything out there. There's a few that there aren't, but they tend to be the newer ones that have come out of nowhere, and people pick up on them fairly quickly and do them.
So you've got a couple of examples on here that you've pinched off of YouTube.
Yep.
Who do they belong to?
They belong to places which are good to find information from, resources that I recommend and I've found through my time learning about Star Wars Unlimited so far. Garbage Rollers are an amazing website and YouTube channel. Their website does a weekly Meta Watch update where they go through tournament results. They look at which decks they think are the most high-performing decks at any given moment based on the tournament results that have happened over the past however long it's been. KTOD, which stands for Kashik Train of Dominance, I've recently found out, are a bunch of very highly skilled CCG players from the US. They do a lot of these deck tech style videos. They've been interviewed by people who take them apart for just interviewing what's going on. They also have a Patreon and a Discord specifically for discussing how to play Star Wars Unlimited. And because it's locked behind paying for their Patreon, you get people there who are serious enough to pay a few quid or a few dollars about wanting to get better at the game. Which may not sound like much, but it keeps out a lot of the just random people who want to talk nothing really. Everybody who's in there has had a reason to just put some money behind it and try and actually learn how to improve their game. So it's a good place to be.
Cool.
Tower Number 9 is a extremely good YouTube channel who's done a lot of videos I found useful with regards to tricks. He's done a lot of web matches that he's filmed and streamed online. He's great insights to watch and look at. Late night gaming, I wasn't really on board with at first, but he's recently started doing these masterclass interviews with people who've won major tournaments or done top 8 at major tournaments. And over the space of like an hour and 15, 20 minutes or so, he goes through literally every element of their deck, how they play it versus certain key matchups, and what the problems and flaws are with their deck that people who are looking to research and find out how to deal with it could potentially rip it apart if they wanted to. Late Night Gaming's masterclasses are amazing. They're extremely good. They presuppose a certain level of information about the game, of knowledge. But if you're there, they're brilliant. And Thork's Hot Takes is a French influencer who does a lot of videos on deck techs. He does a lot of previews as well. He knows a lot about the game. He's played quite a few tournaments. He does his own coaching service. He's another point of information by which you can get details about how decks are put together, how they play, and therefore you can think through what you might do when you face them.
Nice.
I do like Thork videos. I do subscribe to him myself. I do watch a lot of those. I watch most of the one that he comes out with, to be honest.
And once you know where to find all this information, it just goes back a little bit to learn about your enemy, because once you know what the majority of decks you're going to be facing are, you're not just able to think about what you're going to play this turn, what you're going to play next turn, resource appropriately, what you hope you're going to draw, all this sort of stuff. Once you figure out what they're likely to play on this turn and on the next turn, that allows you to start thinking ahead, and it becomes a much more strategic game, and that's taking you to the next level of gameplay. But you can only do that if you know as much as possible about as many meta decks that you're likely to be facing as possible. It's all about learning your enemy. There's an article for Magic the Gathering, which apparently goes back years and is quite famous amongst people who know Magic the Gathering. Something to do with the beatdown and the control. And the idea is that in any given game, you've got a decision to make of Star Wars. And that decision is, with my units on the field, do I attack directly for the opponent's base, or do I attack their units to try and control what they can hit me with? And deciding that basic principle is key to whether or not you're going to win the game. Because if both of you decide to be the beatdown and both of you decide to go for each other's base, it just becomes a straight race. And whoever's got the ability to do the most damage wins. At which point, if you figure out you've not got the ability to do the most damage, you start attacking their units and you figure out that you're the control player in this game. And you can then play appropriately to win. So learning to figure out whether the deck you're facing is going to be the beatdown or the control in each game that you're playing is critical to improving your gameplay, because it will factor into every decision you make in every turn and every action in the game.
This is something that I've really struggled with personally, because I tend to get into a habit of attack base, and then I'll get outraced by someone, or no, this I'm going to focus me to make sure they haven't got anything on there, and then suddenly I'm not doing any damage and I'm running out of stuff. Or I'm letting the game go on too long and I'm playing against someone who's looking for that late game.
They can be really annoying decks that can do either with relatively equal purpose. Another principle of the game is that there are 3 rough types of deck. There's the aggro deck, which tries to do as much damage as quickly as possible and get to the end of the game as fast as it can do. Then you've got the control players who want to literally control everything, get to the late game and bring out their high-powered things which are just going to dominate and win the game and wipe the floor with everything else. And then you've got mid-range games, mid-range decks in the middle, which can potentially do either or. And it's kind of a difficulty scale because aggro, in theory, is simple. Attack base. That's it. Control's a bit more difficult because you've got to know how to control and you've got to know what kind of decks you're playing against, what they're going to be doing so that you can best control them with your disruption, with your removal cards, with your events, with your ambush characters, your sentinels that can stop them from damaging you to let you get to the late game. But the one in the middle, the mid-range game, you need to be able to play the aggro game against control. You need to be able to play the control game against the aggro. And you need to know what they're all going to do so you can make the decision of what you're going to do at any given time.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point, actually. Like, do you ever change what you're doing midway through a game? Like, is it a point where, like, you might think this could happen, right? Where, like, you're behind, you're trying to control, suddenly you think this is the wrong decision. I need to switch it up. Like, I suppose in the few games that I've played, I've struggled with that as well, same as Tony.
It's a difficult decision to make. At the point where you realise that,
you're probably already dead if you.
Yeah.
Maybe for round 2 with your sideboard and things like that. But
that's why it's so critical. You've got to identify as early as possible whether you're the beatdown role in this match or whether you're the control role in this match.
I suppose if you're playing the wrong match, you will potentially be lowering your win probability just because you're playing it wrong.
Yep. And that figures back into learning your enemy and learning the deck types that you could be playing against, getting as many games in as possible so you can figure out what the different leader and base combinations are likely to be wanting to do with the kind of cards at their disposal. And it's going to get even more complicated with set 2 as well, releasing, or any other set that comes on further down the line. It will just get more complicated. But it's so critical. Which leads us then next into the metagame. For those of you who aren't aware of the principle of the metagame is what's going on in the game beyond the game itself. So if you consider the game itself, 2 people sitting down and playing with cards, which is fine. The metagame is everything outside of that. Who is bringing what deck to what tournament? What decks are winning this tournament? What decks are winning the most tournaments? Therefore, what decks do people think might be powerful that you can then plan to tweak your deck to be able to counter? It's all the thinking around the actual playing of the game itself and keeping an eye on the metagame, the tournament results, what people are playing, what the conversation is around. All of this is critical to being able to tweak what you're doing to make your deck perform better, just that little bit better. And this won't be of any surprise to anybody who's played any kind of game like this before.
Yeah, and then you got the anti-meta.
Yep.
If you think that everyone's going to be turning up with Boba, then you bring an anti-Boba deck. But then if you think that everyone's going to turn up with Boba, you bring whatever's good against things that are good against Boba.
Yep.
And you start going down that rabbit hole, and it gets
you
very
go in circles because the anti-meta deck is vulnerable to the Boba that the other things are trying to counter in the first place. Yeah, it's all in the giant circle.
Which is fun.
So you go to a lot of tournaments then, Mark.
Yep.
You obviously know what the meta is.
Yep.
What's
in fact, I've started doing over the past 3 weeks a weekly segment of what the UK tournament results are and what the most popular winning decks are here in the UK.
So when you are getting ready to go to a tournament, are you thinking this is the most meta thing, so I need to be building against that? Or are you trying to build the meta thing? Or are you doing something completely out of left field? Like, what do you enjoy the most? What are you doing? What's your philosophy on that?
I've got this exact conundrum at the moment right now that hit me a couple of days ago and caused me a lot of stress trying to consider what to do. I'm off to a tournament in a couple of days' time here locally, and I know what the meta game is. I know that Boba Fett and Command has been winning a lot of games. I know that Han and Command has been winning a lot of games here in the UK. And I know that Sabine and to a lesser extent some hard control decks have also been fairly popular in top 8s. So I've been thinking, do I just go for something that's a little bit more simple and straightforward and fast to play? Do I change what I have been playing and switch to something else instead that I know might be able to take on some of these other decks, or I've got quite a few games under my belt with the Loot Command deck that I've been playing. I've not been doing amazingly well with it, but I know it. I know it pretty well by now. I don't know it insanely well, or well enough to obviously be winning tournaments and things, but I'm working on it. And the choice is, do I drop all of that experience that I've gained and swap it for something that is, in theory, a deck that has won tournaments?
It's a tough
Well,
one.
you started out this like competitively playing a Sabine deck, didn't you, Mark?
Yeah, very first time. And the reasoning behind that was that Sabine was viewed of as a competitive deck. She was a competitive deck, and she didn't have any legendary cards, so it was pretty cheap to get hold of and easy to get hold of very quickly. A pretty powerful tier 1 Sabine command deck, and I did all right with that. I didn't take home the bacon, but I did okay.
Yeah.
And what I've been considering is one of the new kids on the block is Sabine Cunning, or Blonde Sabine as it's known. And some of the philosophies behind that on one of the late night gaming masterclasses that I watched really resonated with me, because if we go back to the principles of aggro, mid-range, and control, the guy who was playing this Blonde Sabine deck said aggro is the root of everything. It is the basic premise behind the CCG environment, so to speak. If you don't know aggro, if you don't know how to play it well and how to counter it, you can't do control and you can't do mid-range. Therefore, let's try and do aggro, and let's do it as well as we possibly can. And he put in a really convincing discussion with that. He went through his Blonde Sabine deck. He's a really energetic guy. Love him. He's great. And it almost sold me on switching to Sabine Blonde. And I'm seriously thinking about it.
Because you go just totally left field at the moment, John, haven't you?
Yes. But I mean, I always kind of just play what I enjoy, I guess. I try and be competitive with what I enjoy, but it's what
so
I enjoy.
Out of 20 UK store showdown tournaments that have taken place in the past 3 or 4 weeks,
Yep.
There's been one Hera deck in the top 8.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, here in middle of nowhere in Scotland, there is no tournaments. I was looking. The closest one's Dundee. In Dundee's a 2-3 hour drive, and we have a lot going on at the moment with the kids. So that's what it is. If they get some events closer to me, I will 100% go. I hope that they're going to be so isolated that I can take my crazy list. I might build something new. Probably build something new.
It is quite a good list. I mean, you beat my Vader list with it. You beat Mark's
Thrawn.
Yeah. And a lot of events which are best of 1 and not best of 3. If you take something unexpected that people don't know and haven't looked into and haven't researched all these deck tech videos that people are looking at,
and there are no
them by
deck tech videos on Heras.
Yeah. Well, there are, but there aren't any from people who've won events from them because they haven't been winning events.
True.
So
I honestly looked maybe like a month ago. I want to go to an event. There's just I'm too far north in Scotland. There's literally nothing.
Yeah, I was looking at the Scottish ones just to see if I could point any out to you, but Dundee's furthest north one I found.
Yeah, Dundee, Stirling, and Glasgow, and I've been to all 3 of those venues before for Warhammer tournaments. So it's not like I really like the Stirling venue. It's a great venue, but yeah, it's just
there is
at
an
the
Edinburgh
moment.
One as well.
That's even further away, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit further. I have to wait until my son's 1 more year old. He's too young to leave with my wife at the weekend. Yeah,
that's cool. But yeah, keep an eye on the metagame. Learn what people are taking. Learn what's winning. And adjust your gameplay and your deck contents, and more importantly, your sideboard appropriately. Because sideboarding is a massive part of improving your game. Once you know what the metagame is, once you know what decks are out there and winning, you can make decisions about what your deck does or doesn't do, what it's good against and what it's not so good against. And you can bring a sideboard of up to 10 cards that you can swap in and out of between games. Say, for example, there's a card that got dunked on horribly when Set 1 first launched called Bamboozle, which is a yellow hero 2-cost card with a picture of Han Solo on it saying, "We're all fine here. We're all fine. Thank you very much. How about you?" in that bit of the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it exhausts a character and removes all the upgrades on them. which everybody went, when am I ever going to play that? That sounds boring. Sounds massively niche.
Against my Hera deck, you'd play that.
Yeah. And one of the strategies in hard control at the moment, which uses blue and uses a sentinel called Lieutenant Childson, who's a 2/2. And when you play him, you show up to 4 cards from your hand that are blue. And for each one you show your opponent, he gets a +1/+1 experience token, which is great. And they've been doing this so that they deploy a 6/6 sentinel just to stand in the way as a roadblock so that aggro decks can't get past it and the hard control deck can get to the late game. So aggro decks have started playing Bamboozle to exhaust his sentinel and remove all of his experience tokens and make him a 2/2. Right. Trivial. Job him. Move on.
So yeah. Good advice.
Sideboarding is a critical key, yeah. Which just brings me then right back round again to the point we made right at the very beginning. Play as many games as you possibly can. Once you've done all that stuff, get the games in, find some people to play with, find some ways to play online, even if it's with a webcam and some cards and you're just streaming with a friend. Play as many games as possible. Just get them all in. Every game you lose is hopefully a game you learn from. The more difficult, the better.
You do learn more when you lose. You're more critical of your own deck. You see the weaknesses. It's good to lose games, I think.
Yeah. Find people who are
I keep
good.
telling myself that.
Find people who are the best players you can possibly find who will play against you as often as possible and play games with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's it. That's my rough, relatively quick guide to how to improve your game. The methods you want to take by which you just get better, really. There we go.
Cool. We'll add it to our beginner series. If you didn't watch our other beginner series videos, there'll be links on screen somewhere. Please click on them. Please watch them.
And as pre-releases for Set 2 are ramping up at time of launch here, I just want to do a shout out to our friend of the channel, Spellbound Games, UK independent games retailer who will be selling Star Wars Unlimited products. He's really cool. Check out his website. Give him some time. Yeah, it's great. Apart from that, thanks very much, everybody.
Until the next one.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.